NSFAS Acting Board Chairperson Dr. Mugwena Maluleke has called on universities to upload their 2026 admission lists to the NSFAS portal as soon as possible. Maluleke says early submissions will enable NSFAS to begin the student validation process and fast-track funding eligibility assessments. He's also confirmed that the 2026 funding list has already been released and is available for universities to access. Maluleke was briefing the media on NSFAS's readiness for the 2026 academic year, outlining key support measures for students registering at universities and TVET colleges across the country.
As we guide them, the submission of 2026 admission list, universities are required to upload their 2026 admission list to the NSFAS portal as soon as possible. Early submission enables us to begin student validations and prioritize funding eligibility processing. Continuous updates are expected throughout the admission cycle. Thirdly, funding decisions and funding eligibility list or eligible list. All funding decisions for 2026 were completed by 31st December 2025. The initial release for the first time entering students took place on the 15th December 2025, and universities are now able to access funding lists. And the fourth one, which is qualification code updates. This is very critical for our institutions to really take note of. The deadline for qualification code updates was set for the 10th December 2025, and final submission date was the 15th December 2025. Universities were advised to ensure that students are not enrolled in expired qualifications, as NSFAS will not fund such enrollments. The fifth area is the 2026 allowance distribution arrangements and student accommodation.
All right, for more on this, let's now speak to Letswalo, postdoctorate research fellow for digital market and platform at Southern Center for Inequality Studies. A very good afternoon to you. Not sure how much of that wide-scale presser held by NSFAS you followed, essentially announcing that the 2026 funding list has already been released and now systems have been put in place, or new systems rather have been put in place. Does early availability meaningfully reduce registration chaos or the bottlenecks that we see year in, year out?
Thank you so much. I believe, the readiness will actually expedite the process to be more efficient for students, because year in, year out, you find that, especially if they would prioritize first-year students, year in, year out, you find that accepted students are unable to afford to pay registration. Therefore, now they need to wait for NSFAS. And NSFAS might take time. In other institutions of higher learning, for instance, they don't, they give you a specific time frame for you to register. And if you don't have that money to pay for registration in advance, that therefore your space will be given to another deserving student or those that are in the waiting list. So this actually creates, an issue specifically in the institution of higher learning. I know that with VETS, they have actually advanced a system where now you had to accept an offer, which gives you at least the minimal, I would say, time to brief and also time to navigate on how you're going to pay for registration. But in other institutions, they just give you, a specific date to say that please register before this particular date. And if you don't, your space will be given to someone else. So I believe with this system that is in place, will actually expedite and, lubricate the whole process to be more efficient. Thank you.
And I want us to expand on that so that we can then see the difference with these new systems. I mean, from a systems design point of view, oftentimes validation and, how eligible assessments are done, historically, these have broken down. So from your perspective and your point of view, how well do you think this will then be run? And where should we be looking at the improvements, so to speak, especially this year?
I think The most important will be the interoperability of the system. So, for instance, as you would know, we need to get the number of students that are accepted within the institution of higher learning. And also, NSFAS must also know that, okay, these students are accepted in specific universities that they would like to enroll in, and so that they can pay the registration. So, the system, I think, if they were to advance the way in which, when you apply and you get acceptance, by virtue of typing your ID, you are able to check your status and all that. I believe that can be done in terms of registration. However, the issue would be that if students have applied in various universities and they get accepted to, across all these various universities, then it becomes a problem. You won't be able to navigate. So as much as the system provides a hopeful, but there are also structural handicaps that perpetuate these particular situations to be more stagnant. Because students would apply for, for instance, maybe 25 or 26 universities, and they get accepted across all. So it becomes more, difficult to detect which university of choice the students wants to go to. But I believe that, with the important notification, it will be, facilitated. So I think if they were to strengthen the interoperability for efficiency, that will be more of, I think, innovative and also responsive to the challenges.
And I'd like to be, positive about it too, but notwithstanding, those innovative, models that have been introduced, could there be a risk, though, of over-centralizing this critical system? I mean, as we've been saying, NSFAS saying that it's upgrading its portal, so it will allow applications, it will allow tracking, accommodation, acceptance, and even maintenance reporting on this one platform.
I think, since it won't be centralized per se, because it will be used by both NSFAS and the institution of higher learning. So I believe, there's a decentralization organ. Also, universities can provide such information because in terms of acceptance, NSFAS doesn't know which students are accepted. So there's an element of input and data that the university must provide to inform NSFAS to make that tracking, that allocation more efficiently. So I believe that it mustn't be a centralized institution. If it's centralized or solely owned by NSFAS, then the data must be provided by universities in terms of their acceptance, in terms of registration required for specific students, and it's simple. It's just a matter of student number or ID in that matter.
Yeah. I want to go back to another pointer that we were meant to speak about, and that's looking at rising costs at our institutions. From a research perspective, what are some of the main drivers, do you think, behind the rising costs of tertiary education in South Africa? And which of these are structural, do you think?
I think there's a myriad of issues that accelerate the exorbitance of higher institution. But I believe more instantly is that, as you would know, we have government constraints in terms of its expenditure and allocations. So most of the department, just last year, 2025 beginning, we had a very big debate about whether to increase tax or not. So that shows that the government austerity has been constrained specifically by one. It would be a refocusing of priority. We have the SRD now grants that are also providing a further burden on the government expenditure, which is good, by the way. I'm not disputing it for its cancellation, but I think it's equally good for remedy and also to the affordability of the basket and food security in the country. Another issue would be, I think I've also mentioned that it will be the lack of economic growth. As you would know, the GDP has been stagnant. It hasn't risen, it hasn't grown beyond 1% or even 1% in some instances. So that is one of the things that, and importantly, I think also corruption that also continue to perpetuate amid these particular circumstances. So you find that there's a whole lot of money and capital that is being looted within state-owned, public-owned institutions, and that is one of the structural impediments that might contribute towards the rising of fees precisely, and universities are also now, trying to look abroad, or rather trying to raise funds, abroad to fund some of the operational issues such as research, infrastructural, but it hasn't been much, as you would know, as you would look precisely during the 2000s. The government was providing about 40%, and now that amount has been decreasing in terms of subsidy. And those are the elements on why or how the subsidies has actually been cut or reduced over the years. So, yeah, one of the indicators would be, refocusing of government priorities, and also the lack of economic growth over the years.
Yeah. And now, just finally, as we wrap up, I mean, did you get a sense of comfort having listened to what was said, particularly by the acting board chair, in terms of just how they are implementing this transitional framework, which is also aimed at transparency, which is important because it then says that it is more student-focused in terms of its approach?
Well, a lot has been said, and I'm very optimal about what has been said, but I'm focusing on what is to be done then. As you would know, such deliberations can be uttered every now and then, but when coming to the operationalization of the intentions that the NSFAS have, I believe that's where we'll be able to gauge them, because we can't gauge them based on what they are currently intending to do, but we want to ensure, or rather, judge them based on what they have done to eradicate some of the fundamental issues that have been happening for years, by the way. It's not something that has been, So I'm not interested in what they are saying, but I'm actually interested in what they are doing. But based on what they are saying, there's so much hope. I believe that, there would be more efficiency that we will see in terms of, the enrollment, and also, the acceptance, and also cutting the issue on registration. So I believe that we'll see how this turns out, but fundamentally, I'm very hopeful that it works.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell, and fundamentally behind every word that is uttered are desperate students. But Neo, thank you so much for your time. Neo Letswalo is a postdoctorate research fellow for digital market and platform at Southern Center for Inequality Studies.